All right. Hello. Good evening, and welcome back to Relationshipping. I almost said something else. Welcome to Relationshipping, the podcast where we dive into all hot topics of the day, from parenting struggles and relationship dilemmas to the big issues shaping our world. This is a heart. This is what they do in China when they say, I love you. I'm your host, LaDonna Raeh, and as always, I'm joined by my incredible co-host, the one, the only, Lorenzo T. Hughes.
What's going on, family? How y'all doing?
They're not going to answer you back.
Hey, they can drop something in the chat.
That is
y'all
true.
Here.
That
drop,
is
hey,
true.
say hey, what's up? How y'all say hi in the chat or say something to us.
Dang, say something. And you know something? If you really want to give us a call, you can, because we have what's called a phone line. So if you go ahead and call 312-357-5141, that will actually put you on the line with us live right here on the phone. We'll try it out. And we'd love to hear from you. In fact, let me go ahead and make sure that it's working for tonight. But in the meantime, Zoe, we were having a good conversation. I say it's a good conversation about how there were some exciting, provoking episodes that took place, in when it comes to a double standard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I listen. If you've ever tuned in and listened to me, when I was on radio or when I was doing my lives and everything, I didn't mind making people feel uncomfortable, because there's going to be some conversations that sometimes they make you feel uncomfortable. And this is one of those conversations. And based on what we were talking about, this double standard that we live by, you can look at it several different ways. You can look at the double standard we have based on race, the double standard we have based on gender, sexuality, politics, the way our systematic legal system is set up. There's this double standard that's out there. And if you haven't seen it or have experienced it, I don't know what planet you living on.
Yeah, particularly we're going to talk about something that's going to spark some conversations.
Oh yeah.
And like the title of this episode is Double Standards and the Misuse of Protection. So I don't know if most of you out there have done the sexual harassment training, that online training that your job makes you do, where you have to answer a plethora of questions, what you would do in a situation. Does it sound like it's sexual harassment, quid pro, and things of that nature? But it does outline, this training does outline protected groups of people. So in those protected groups of people are religious beliefs, sexuality, orientation, and sex, race, and political views. Okay. Yeah. So, and I know I'm missing one or two, but those are the protected groups of people. Now, if you think about it, each one of us fall under and age. I'm sorry, I forgot about age. Each one of us fall under a protected group of people. So it's like, we should just all be protected, right? But how do you handle a double standard when someone is using their protected group status as a weapon? That right there is very difficult to deal with, because now you don't want the institution that you work for or that you attend for education purposes, they don't want to get sued. And the company that you work for doesn't want to get sued because of the protected groups. But why is it that sometimes protected groups overshadow others?
And that's a very interesting question. And if you don't think you've experienced it, or if you're not aware that you've experienced it, think about some of the experiences that you've had on your job. You think about some of those experiences. When you look at the policies and procedures, and you look who are sometimes protected by policies and procedures and who are not protected by policies and procedures, and how those policies and procedures are utilized or implemented and who they're utilized and implemented against. You'll have sometimes you'll have people in leadership positions that use their discretion on where they'll implement a policy or procedure against someone, or they'll choose to use it. They'll choose to be passive with it. So when we talk about this double standard, and so we can jump right in, based on time, you mentioned something earlier about the different type of trainings we have to go through. For example, I just went through a training to teach after school programs for a Catholic institution. So I had to go through this whole archdiocese certification where I had to take all this training on how to deal with children, and to function and operate when working with children. And I found this to be very interesting. This is when the big big incident that happened with the Catholic Church and the abuse of young boys. I found it to be very interesting that they are still self-investigating these situations where they haven't even gotten to all the priests that were involved with these accusations. And I found it to be very interesting that when that snowball began to roll, that there was no FBI going in, snatching up computers and hard drives and cleaning out files for an investigation. I found it to be very interesting that the Catholic Church was even, they made the proposal that they'll do their own investigation. Mm-hmm. So when I say there's a double standard out there, let's say starting with this particular incident, the one thing that confused me a lot when this was going on, some time ago when it first started, was we have a department called Child Protective Services. So when you think about Child Protective Services, for example, and the way they investigate the protection and the safety of children, I almost wonder if there is a double standard when it comes to how they investigate child crimes, mm-hmm. and who they investigate and how hard they pursue the harm inflicted on a child. For example, if we're talking about, a religious institution such as one as large as the Catholic Church, when you have children who have come forward and say they have been molested or treated in an unfavorable manner sexually, when they say this and it's put out there and it's proven and it's fact that no one is able or have the power to go in to enforce the safety and protection of children, when that is their job. So my question is there a double standard out there that we're not recognizing, or that we're sweeping under the rug, or we're turning a blind eye to, or we just feel helpless in pursuing or fighting against it? Mm-hmm. Is there a double standard out there?
Well, it's definitely a double standard because allegations were brought up about Diddy for many years. We're talking about 30 plus years. Mm-hmm. And just last year, and it took so long, that's a double standard because Uncle Keith would have been, taken under right away. But he got 30 years in to build up and stack up information in a case against him. And then someone finally got the courage to come forward. And shout out to Cassie. I am so proud of her. It's a shame that she had to go through so much and endure so much, but she took one for the team. And now all of this other snowballing is taking place. But others have come forward, and now they're being added to the list of allegations. Mm-hmm. So it took a long time for him to even get to this point. But look at all the lives that he got to ruin in the meantime. So this should have been nipped in the bud initially. However, there are so many double standards that it's making our head spin. It's like there's no double jeopardy, but there's double standards. So if you look at situations in the school, I did make a post on social media and I said, parents, do you and your children feel powerless in the school system? And that can mean many things. Sometimes parents are intimidated by the education system if they don't have an education, or if the teachers or the school system makes them feel intimidated by them. And there's a long list of things why parents may feel intimidated by the school system. Another thing is they have implemented so many rules that our children are forced to sit there for a long time and learn what they have standardized us to our children to learn. And they go down the middle. They don't care about the upper or the under. And that is just it. Some kids come to school and that's the only meal that they will get. And unfortunately, parents or the parent or the caregiver is just not able, whether it be mentally or financially, to take care of that child, where they get a healthy meal outside of that school. Okay, so those are some layers. Those are called layers. But then sometimes those children, they kind of slip into the rabbit hole of, I don't really know what's going on in my life, and I don't know why my life is so rough, and I'm going to take this route. Then you have other children that may be influenced by society to feel the need or the pressure to do what we call come out, okay? Come out and be labeled. It's like you got to pick a team here. Nothing against joining churches or even chambers. From joining churches to joining chambers, it's like when you join, what do you get? Okay. But when it comes to the community of making a choice of coming out, you've joined a movement of it being okay to be gay. Nothing wrong with that, right? Those of us that at first were like, look, I don't need to know all of that. Well, personally, I feel like I shouldn't really know if a person is gay. Like I really shouldn't know if a person is gay. Now, I know that word is like, oh, shiggity. You said the word gay. I did. It means a couple of things. I also wear rainbow hats and earrings because I like the rainbow. Okay, so I just like those colors. But at the same time, I'm mentioning this because if there are people that are part of the protected group that we spoke about earlier, and under that protected group is your sexuality, your orientation, and your sexuality, and that just happens, you know what I'm saying, and you've decided that you are gay or transgender or transsexual or whatever the choice may be, you are under that protected group. Now, I've always said, I don't mind you being who you are. Do it. But where's my bleep button? Is this it? No, I don't think that is. When it messes with who I am, we got a problem. But that's me as an adult. What does a child do? What does a student do? What is a student that is trying to focus on getting good grades, keeping up with the curriculum, getting along with the teacher, the students, fit in, and they are being ostracized because they are not wearing a flag or a label that says, I am part of this protected group or that protected group, or I support this protected group or that protected group. What happens when a student uses their protection as a weapon?
And I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna fast forward up to what you're talking about too, because I definitely want to chime in on that as well. And you had I'm gonna go back to where you mentioned like P Diddy and this whole set of dominoes that have fell, in regards to him. Yes, that's been going on for years. And when you look at how long it's been going on and how many people have come out and how many times he's been in court and paid people off, you had people like Bill Cosby, where they went back in his history and pulled up some accusations, from the 60s and 70s, and wanted to charge him with things that took place with adults, might I say.
Yeah.
In the 60s and 70s, when drugs and sex was the popular thing during that time. And so that is we definitely see when it comes to punishment of crimes as a culture, we definitely see a double standard. We see it. I know there are people that don't want us to see it, or they try to, smooth it over and try and make us think that's not what really happened. But we see it. But, even fast forwarding to what you just ended at, a situation, with the word gay, we can't even use the word. It's hard for us to even use the word now without somebody feeling insulted by it, because we're so emotionally sensitive now in this day and age. But when my daughter was in the second grade, I remember being called up to the school. This is when the public school system was implementing the new anti-bullying policies. My daughter had used the word gay, and it was when they was using, at the time, people were using the terminology gay as, that's silly, that's stupid, that's crazy. So people was at the time was saying, oh, that's gay. They were saying that. And my daughter had used it on the playground, and one of the teachers in the public school system overheard her use the word gay. So she got sent to the office. The school called me because their mom at the time was at work. So I went up to the school, had a conversation with the principal, and they were saying that they would have to suspend my daughter because of the new policies, the anti-bullying policies, and that word fell under that anti-bullying policy. So they suspended her.
In second grade?
In the second grade, they suspended her. And I was like, at that time I asked her, I said, well, Annalise, I said, do you know what that word means? She didn't even know what it meant. She was just using the word because that's what people used it in, at the time. Young people were using it in the context of that's silly. They were using the word interchangeably. And she was suspended because of that in the second grade.
I really feel like you should be able to go back and appeal that suspension to this day. Because here's the thing. A second grader is about 7 years old. There's no way. Oh, what am I saying? You got parents out there allowing their young children to transform for real. Yeah, I'm sorry. What was I thinking?
That's the world we live in.
Yeah. Yeah. Anytime. I mean, there's parents. I've had an incident at a school with one of my sons where he started liking this girl. I'll put that in quotes. He started liking this girl. She was real cool. He was like, wow, she's real. We have a lot in common. And then he finds out that she's a boy. Now, not because she told him, but because he looked on the teacher's desk and saw the grade book and was like, who is this student? And he asked about it. And when the teacher said, oh, that's so-and-so, he was like, what? Wait, what? He was confused. My son stopped communicating with this student. The school punished him for not communicating with her because he was, let's say, lied to. And so then this could have resulted in a suicide. I'm just keeping it real. This could have. Do you recall? Was it Jerry Springer, one of those talk shows where somebody confronted this guy? It was a man confronting a man, telling him he had a crush on him on national television. He beat the crap out of him and killed him. Okay, so my thing is, you can't expect you can't. I don't mind you having your parades and wearing your prides and all of this stuff. But when you shove it down my throat, let me go back to what happened to my son. He ultimately he got into a detention. He got detention because of the way he was mistreating this student. Now, mistreatment was that he stopped talking to the student. The student, complained to the school, and the way that they chose to handle it was to punish my son. So I had to roll up my sleeves and go up to the school, and I said, not today. No, we're not doing this. Because, number one, you took my son's choice away. There was no announcement saying, by the way, this person is really this. Okay. And I see that the Labnificent Media Group posted something that they can go all the way back to your birth certificate. Well, that as it should be. Okay. Because on your birth certificate, look, I don't want to. Yeah, I do. So watch this. I had to fuss and fight about this situation. And do you know what the administrators at the school told me? You don't want to fight that fight. Mm-hmm. In other words, you are insinuating that the rights of this protected group are greater than the human rights that my son and I have. And if my son were to end his life because he felt confused about the whole thing, then I would get what's called H&P. Do you know what that is?
What is that?
Hearts and prayers. Huh. Our hearts and prayers go out to you and your sons.
And the crazy thing about that, and y'all, this is by no means a witch hunt against homosexuality or anything like that. Listen, I'm in the theater. I work in the theater. I have clients who
don't you say you got gay friends? Don't you dare say that. Like I got black friends.
Now listen, I've had friends that were gay and I didn't know they were gay.
Okay.
I didn't know they were gay. They move around the world like regular human beings. But this is what I'm saying. If you're going to have protection for homosexuality, you got to have the same protection, for my heterosexuality.
That's right.
You mean I can't have my rights for my heterosexuality has to be superseded by a homosexuality rights? See, what I believe has to happen is that sometimes we feel so overwhelmed by the laws and policies that we lose our fight. And sometimes you just got to fight. We have lost the confidence to fight for our own rights. Mm-hmm. So to the degree that we accept being violated, mistreated, abused, and all these different negative things that happen to us that we don't even fight. And then the sad thing is sometimes we don't even come together and fight in numbers. So it's really hard to fight alone. And we had this conversation before. I truly believe that sometimes we function in tribes. You have some people within our own culture, and I'm sure it's the same in other cultures, but we see it so much in our culture that we function in these little cells, these little tribes and everything, where you think someone feels like you or sees things through your eyes, but they want to be on the other team so bad that they tend to act like them and think like them. Mm-hmm. So they're mistreating you the same way you're being mistreated by this particular group.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful in when choosing our battles and who we're choosing to fight with us, and finding those tribes that understand where we're coming from. So what I'm saying is that I'm heterosexual and I refuse to bow down to anyone who's forcing me to believe, think, and feel the way they do. I'm by no means, I will treat you like a human being. I'm going to do that regardless. I treat everyone like a human being first until you start to abuse and assault me because I don't feel the way you feel or think the way you think.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to bow down to it. If I don't agree with it, I'm not going to agree with it just because of your emotions or because the law said I should. No. No. And I don't expect people to. I have so many people that don't agree with me, which is fine. I don't expect us to always agree with each other. That's what makes us different. That's what makes everyone different. You're going to have some people that jump higher than you, run faster than you, run longer, pick up more weight than you do, that's stronger than you're just going to have it.
Yeah. Well, we have a caller on the line. Caller 1054. How you doing this evening?
I'm okay. How you guys doing?
Doing well. Well, so what do you have you have a comment about the topic that we have tonight?
Absolutely. It's on the aspect of black people and our identity,
Oh, I can't
because I
hear you.
agree with a lot of what Lorenzo was saying, uh, but I also agree that what we have is a self-hate type of issue. We long for acceptance so much
Headphones.
that we champion everybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Lorenzo's not able to hear you. If you look on the screen, he's not wearing his headphones. So
No, he's not wearing his
I
headphones.
know I'm gonna get him a pair of headphones, but I can hear you loud and clear because I was compliant.
Okay, well, tell him to turn his YouTube volume up so he can hear us. He knows who I am.
Oh, he knows who you are. Okay, one second.
Yes.
We gonna get it together over here. He was trying to be cool. All right, give him a second. I'm gonna get him set up with the headphones, and I want you to hold your comment for 1 second. We're gonna get it so he can hear you. Okay. And thank you so much
All
for
right.
calling in. One moment. All right, Lorenzo.
you on everything else except gay rights. You might agree with me on everything else except Republicans. You see what I'm saying? And every time there's a small nuance, there leaves room for me not to trust you. We're so fickle. All we want is one reason to not trust you. Like if you go on a date, just keep in mind, if you go on a date with a black woman, or if you go on a date with a woman in general, they are looking and expecting you to be exactly what they think you should be. And if they find one or two things wrong in the beginning, it may be a wrap for you. Just like if you go out and you're looking for a woman in today's society, 9 times out of 10, they have to be 9 times out of 10. You see what I'm saying? And the one thing that's wrong with them has to be variable, or it has to be something that can fluctuate. Maybe I can deal with it this time, maybe I can't. We're like that as people, okay? Look what happened in the election with Kamala. Black women said, black men, we need you to stand with us. Kamala got 3 out of 4 black men, 9 out of 10 black women. You should win. But guess what? Black women were mad at black men because they didn't get 80. They got 75. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Like we get mad at our women for doing things that we should be doing. You see what I'm saying?
I see what you're saying.
Even though that one thing is a discrepancy, we may have 90% in common. We may have 90% in common, but we just can't get over the hump of the thing we can't agree with. We have to learn to compromise instead of tolerate. When you compromise, you can work out the details. When you tolerate, you harbor contempt and you harbor resentment. And we have that toward each other. If you're more beautiful than I am, if you're taller than I am, if you got more money than me, and keep in mind, this goes back to the thing I just said. It's only one thing, and we will be jealous of it and envious of it. Very, very petty as a people. So I don't really think we have any problems. We have millionaires. We have billionaires. We have everything that white people have, just in a smaller microcosm. We just have it in the black society. But everything that they have, we have. We got the richest black person. You know what I'm saying? He's billions and billions and billions. You know what I'm saying? And we have the poorest black person. We have the uncle that's biased. We have the grandma that's angry as hell. Everybody has these character types in their demographic, but they can compromise and get along with each other and say, we're going to do it. We say, nigga, if you do one thing, you got one time. Ain't that what they say? You got one time. Damn, one time? I ain't got 3 times.
No.
Even at a baseball game, they give you 3 times. 3 strikes you out. Black people, what's Mike Tyson? You got 1 time, and then what? Knockout. You know what I'm saying? It's that type of thing. We have to be more considerate, and we have to compromise. That's what our issue is. And with that being said, if we apply that across the board, I don't really think that these other barriers will matter, because we're too busy working together instead of looking for someone outside to work with. You work with me and I work with you. And guess what? That's a team.
Well, that sounds like a perfect world right there. But what really brought this up, and I love it that and I love your comment. If you work with me, I work with you. I'm kind of like that, right? But when protected groups of people use their protection as a weapon, that's a problem. So I just want to swing back to the initial reason why this particular episode was so important, and why the title says that if you are a parent or a child, or you may have a child that feels powerless in the school system, it's because of these double standards. Now, let me just give you an example of some double standards. And this is something that we see all the time. Mom shaming versus dad praising. Moms are often criticized for working long hours, while dads are praised and told that they're taking care of their families. Discipline expectations are different for boys. They're often excused for rowdy behavior, where girls are expected to be prim and proper. You know what I mean? And then let's get down to relationship double standards. I'm just giving these as examples. Cheating reactions. Okay, society tends to forgive men more easily than if you got a cheating woman. Okay, she's automatically a garden tool, whereas a man is just being a man. Emotional expression. Women are expected to be emotional and nurturing, while men are told to man up and suppress feelings. How fair is that? It's not fair because men have feelings too. And now they feel in order to prove their manhood that they have to suppress their emotions. So the double standard, if I wanted to lead up to the double standard in the school, you have discipline acts, or should I say a code of conduct. It's in the books. You sign it during orientation, right? The parent, the student signs it. Everybody's happy. They go over it in the orientation and everybody understand that there's a zero tolerance for bullying. But what if you're bullied as a student, right? And you're bullied by a protected group of people. Back when 9/11 happened, everyone was so afraid of anyone who wore a head wrap. Let's not forget that. Everyone was afraid of anyone who looked like they were Egyptian descent. So here we are, fast forward. That was 9/11. That was 2001. Here we are in 2024. Well, by the way, black folks, they wasn't even looking at black folks at the time. We were safe at the moment. However, now we're moving forward. And we have this gay revolution, which is awesome for them. Okay, they've pushed for gay rights, and it's great that they have gotten gay rights. Now, a lot of times you hear conversations, I'm just going to be honest. You hear conversations saying, well, what rights did they need? Like, how is it necessary to push gay rights into the workplace, the school, religious institutions, and so on and so forth? Now, I do understand the discrimination piece. You say, you know what? So-and-so's gay. We're not, I don't want to give them a contract, rent an apartment, give them a job, let them in the school. Okay, I understand those gay rights to minimize and eliminate and even eradicate discrimination. But when gay rights get to the point where let me tell you, you get to shove it in my face and I got to stand there and take it, grin and bear it. That's overstepping some boundaries. And I say that because numerous of times I've been approached with someone using their protected group status as a weapon. Number one, I used to teach at a college here in Chicago. I was having a meeting. We were on a Zoom meeting early. It was me and another teacher and I want to speak proper English. And we were talking about the curriculum. And we're going, bullet point by bullet point. And I'm saying, yeah, I can see how it can improve and the students can learn a lot better if we did X. And he's like, yeah, let's do it. And then out of the blue, he says to me, and I quote, because I'm gay. And the look on my face was like, did I miss something? Did I miss something? Like, what does that have to do with the curriculum? We are at work A and talking about the curriculum B. And I guess at that moment I was supposed to go, oh, okay, that's awesome. I was stunned because now you told me, because I'm gay. You don't know what went through my head at that moment. You put it there. I wasn't trying to imagine that you were gay. I'm thinking that we're teaching students. So that was one incident that I can recall that I've written and it's going in my book. The other incident is what I told you what happened to one of my sons, where because he was bullied, or should I say he was reported by a protected group status person, he got the short end of the stick. No pun intended. And on another occasion, how is it that a protected group status person gets to spread rumors about an individual in a small setting, and everyone is listening to them because they're the loudest and squeakiest wheel, loud, flamboyant with it and making everybody laugh. And now everybody's listening to this particular individual that's protected status. And because they run off at the mouth with rumors, everyone is now spreading it, and it affects the quote unquote non-protected student or my son. Okay. And now, because he started it and started saying some things, and my son felt the need to get angry or upset, why is it when the dean gets involved that my son feels less supported in the situation when it is just flat out bullying? Okay, let that sit for a minute. And so instead of getting emotional, because, of course you want to get emotional with your children, those are your children. And you think about, what would you do in the situation if you were at work? Would you lose your job and feel better by reacting instead of responding? Or would you go to HR and let them handle it? And if they didn't handle it properly, what would you do next? So you know what I decided to do? And caller 1054, unless you want to give your name. My next move was to pull out the code of conduct. Okay? We have to go back to the text. The text says that at orientation, that from this day forward, every student is going to be protected by the no bully policy. There will be restorative justice. We will kumbaya and pray it out, right? Work it out. It will not be an imbalance of power, because according to page so-and-so, section 3, 2, 3, and 4, and on page 30, whatever as well, following page, that all of these instances are protected in the code of conduct. So when the person of protected status gets to overshadow because of their protected status, what next?
Yeah, I see, absolutely. I see where you're coming from, but it goes back, to what we're saying. There is, to answering that question, is there a double standard? Like you said, you mentioned something, previous, and I like to speak from experience. I gave you my experience with the homosexuality piece, and that's why I asked you, if you're listening or if you're tuned in, drop your experience in the chat. If you haven't called in or don't want to call in, drop your experience in the chat, because see, you mentioned something before when we talk about this protected culture. Women also share that protected culture. For example, when I was 20, when I moved to Kansas City with my first wife, and I had, as a man, experienced domestic violence. When you are a man experiencing domestic violence, people kind of look at you with a crooked eyes, as if, as a man, you can't be a victim of violence. When I went through that at the age of 20, I remember, moments where my mother had experienced, had domestic violence incidents and stuff growing up as a kid, but I never thought that I would experience that. And when you experience it, like at the age of 20, I was totally oblivious to the fact of a woman being able to falsify a police report. For some reason, I thought that honesty would always prevail, even in law enforcement. I thought that if you told the truth, that when they arrived at the scene, they would be able to figure it out and know that this was a lie. But I did not know at that age of 20, because at 20, you're still a kid. You're still pretty much a kid. You're experiencing and learning life at that point. But even then, when I was getting arrested for things that I didn't do. I was totally, it was unbelievable to me. I couldn't believe it was happening. So as I became experienced, so I tried to flip the switch. I said, you know what? I'm going to call the police now. And these are the games that get played in these type of situations as they begin to escalate. I said, I'm going to call the police. But it wasn't until that first time I called the police and I told them what happened, that I was assaulted and what had happened to me. And their response, well, you know what? Mr. Hughes, somebody has to leave. You both can't stay in the house together. So, Mr. Hughes, just go ahead and, grab your shoes and grab a few belongings. And I was like, for what? They removed me from the house. Even when I called and I specifically told them, but I called you. And these are the experiences that we go through when we deal with the protected culture. When you look at the female protected culture, you have to look at, like with children, you have like the child protective service. With women, you just have the family court system or the court system in general. Women automatically know if they dial 911, they're coming, their savior is coming.
Yeah, well, Sonia Massey thought that was going to happen for her when she called the police.
And you're absolutely right.
And lost her life because she said, I rebuke you. I'm sorry. Is that out of context? It's just an imbalance of power again. I called you and I get killed? Okay.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm still here, guys, and I'm listening. And I just wanted to interject for a second.
Please.
And say, going back to the children, my son was bullied twice in elementary school. He's in high school now, but he was bullied twice in elementary school. Once by a girl, once by a guy. The guy was on the bus. The young guy was on the bus, and he fought him. He didn't want to fight him, but I told him sometimes you got to fight. And he fought him, and the young guy never bothered him again. But when it came to the girl, she was bigger than him, and she was in a grade higher than him, and she was using objects to hit him. And he came home crying, and I was like, what's going on? He was like, Dad, I'm being bullied. And I was like, well, what's happening? He told me the situation, and I was like, oh, well, it's completely permissible to defend yourself in that situation if nobody else is doing anything. And he said, I can't. I said, why can't you? He said, Dad, because she's a girl. Yep. Yes. I said, Jaquay, she has objects. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
She has objects. This is not just her hands. She has objects and she's hitting you with them. This is a completely different circumstance. You see what I'm saying? So I think that also comes along with conditioning, but it was handled completely different. And I just always thought about that. And I thought that as he grows older, he's going to have to deal with that.
You know, that is so, and my hat goes off to him because he restrained himself. We know he could, whether she was bigger or not, he's still a boy. And we know
she's bigger and older.
Well, I would have laid her. Okay, I'm sorry.
With objects. Do you understand what I'm saying?
The interesting
with
thing,
objects.
Hey, brother, look, Jay, look, man. The interesting thing about that is that
that's ridiculous.
A woman would say because your son was the victim, a woman would tell you, well, he did the right thing. Until it happens to her son, then it's a whole different response of how he should handle it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's different when it happens to her
gonna do
son.
it to mine.
But see that, what does that fester into? What did you guys do after that? Has he gotten some type of therapy, counseling? And I'm just asking.
No, we talked. I mean, he's fine because
he's fine.
The therapy is because you can't talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, he and I spoke about it. He told me how he felt about it. I told him how I felt about it. And I explained to him what the dynamic is. And I explained to him the double standards of what that circumstance involved. And he was like, "Go ahead, go ahead."
I'm gonna say this to you, man. My son experienced the same thing on the bus, but it was in high school. And I can't recall if you said your son dealt with it in high school. Well, my son got into a fight with a girl. He came home upset. And I'm like, son, what's going on? What happened, man? And he said he got into a fight with this girl on the bus. And I'm gonna tell you, right, when I saw the scratches on his neck and on his face,
yes,
because of my experience, I was kind of conflicted with what type of response or conversation to have. I had to take a deep breath so that I was thinking clearly so I could have the proper and correct conversation. And the one conversation I did have with him was the training that I had when I went through the Eastern Jackson County Police Academy. In law enforcement, what they teach you is when you get into an altercation, you have to yell out loud so people can hear you the things that you want the suspect to stop doing. Like, stop hitting me. Don't let go of my gun. What that does, and let me tell you what that does psychologically to the people watching or listening, it puts a perception in their head. So when they start interviewing people, that's why they say, well, what did you hear? Well, I heard the officer say, stop hitting me. I heard the officer say, let go of my gun. So now in everybody's mind, they're thinking, okay, he must have grabbed his gun. Oh, he must have deserved to have gotten shot. He grabbed his gun. Oh, he was hitting the officer.
Check this out. Look at how extreme that is.
It is extreme.
To have to even consider that in the heat of the moment.
Yes. But what I'm saying is from our perspective, especially as Black men, sometimes, we have to let go of our egos a little bit. And sometimes even if you kicking a person's tail, you got to yell out for help. Call the police. Somebody help me. So that people can say, oh man, he needed help. He was in danger. He yelled for him to call the police, because what happens is even when you're defending yourself, the cuffs are going on you. And then you're going to have to defend yourself in court. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have something or some witnesses hearing you say, help, call the police. Even if you dropping elbows on the person, you got to start. You got to start taking proper measures for after you issue this butt whooping.
It's funny that you say that because when we were speaking earlier, I was thinking, and as my son is getting older, I speak to him about some of the things to expect. You see what I'm saying? Because I try to prevent and avoid.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? Because I want his trajectory to be straight and smooth. Mm-hmm. So I want to teach him to recognize the things that potentially could be. So sometimes we'll watch court cases or police videos online, and I'll say, hey, do you understand it? Do you see what's going on right here? Mm-hmm. And then I'll show him a language, like trigger language, like catchphrases that people will use to try to lure you into doing certain things. You see what I'm saying? Like if sometimes when the police want to get you to get out of the car, they'll say, hey, you got something wrong with the back of your car. Can I show you your license plate? And once you step out the car, they got access to you. But if you stay in the car, they don't have access to you. You know what I'm saying?
He told him, look, take a picture. Take a picture, send it to me.
But you
man,
know what? Look, that goes back to what we were saying. Mm-hmm. When you look at this protected culture, they understand, especially with some of us, people can be easily provoked. And when you easily provoke someone, you can force them to a degree to act in a way where you can take action against them. Mm-hmm.
And that's called protection, and that's ridiculous.
Yes, it is ridiculous.
That's the double. That is the very That is the opposite side of protection. But you can enforce that. But everything has a positive and a negative side too.
And this is true. And you have to know your rights. You have to know, like even in schools, you have to know your rights. If your child is disabled or has an IEP, a 504, or whatever protected status they may have, you need to know your rights for real, because these people are studying. They're studying. And they are utilizing it to their own advantage. And you have to utilize your own protected status for your own advantage. We have Ricardo Arce. He has a question, and it's one of those controversial ones that people might say. He says that, thank you so much for the topic tonight. You're welcome. Mr. Hughes, he says, do you think because of President Trump being in power now, that you will see the double standards disappear or get worse?
You know what? I don't think so. You know, we had one run of President Trump, and I think we were fine. What I do believe is that we're going to look for, we're going to look for reasons. See, it goes back to I can't remember who brought it up, but sometimes we look for reasons to dislike or to be angry with each other. Sometimes you got people that wake up first thing in the morning with the sole intent to be angry with someone. And I truly believe when Trump is in office, I don't think we're going to see much of a difference. The reason we see a lot of discourse now is because we've been racially divided. So we live in a country that's defined based on racism and sexism now. So we're defined on that. So we're going to have that regardless of who's in office.
Yeah.
And we've seen that already. The Democrats have been in power since, who was it? Man. Look, they've been in power since the Bush Senior?
Oh, yeah.
Bush Senior, I think. Yeah, I think Bush Senior.
Yeah.
And but I think we're going to see this racial divide, as long as we live in this country. And then now we have this gender divide or sexual divide that we're going to see as well. So I don't think it's going to have anything to do with who's in the presidential seat, but we're going to see it anyway.
Now, me on the other hand, I think that with President Trump in office, double standards are double standards. They're not based on who's in office. Hell, he had a double standard. So he had quite a few double standards. But what my recommendation would be just to the general public is that get to know your rights. Like if you don't know the law for real, you're going to succumb to all of the BS that comes with those that don't know, and that you shall perish. It's just what it is. So we have to encourage our children, our young people to know the laws, to know their rights, and know how to advocate for themselves. Now, I didn't want to get all preachy with you, but I see that Labnificent says something that I actually agree with. Now I'm going to take this down, and we're going to say hi to LaSavin. LaSavin is our friend. She's saying, "Hey, Lorenzo and LaDonna."
Hey,
hi, LaSavin. Thank you.
Trouble playing the music from your library.
Alexa, cancel. Okay, I didn't say anything about you. But watch this. Labnificent said things are about to get better. I can't wait and see, because even though people were falling out crying, and I get this from a really good friend of mine saying that there were a lot of people, especially women, black women, were falling out crying. Oh my gosh, Kamala, she didn't make it to the White House. I don't want to get with it. And also, I've had people call me and say, "Girl, come get on the bus with me so we can go vote for Kamala." I was like, I got to work today and I've already voted. So, that's just me, And those same people are now saying, well, maybe now that Trump is going to be in office, maybe with him putting prayer back into the schools and having some structure when it comes to making a decision on how we approach people with our sexuality. I'm paraphrasing just so I don't offend anybody possibly. Now, let me just land this plane, Lorenzo, because I'm really passionate about this. I think if my kids were grown and gone, that I wouldn't have to really deal with this or even look into it more than I have. I think that humans need human rights. That's what I think, right? Now that's the form and fuzzy world that I would love to live in, but then you got these other layers. Like the layers that you had no choice in. Being black. I didn't choose to be black. But if I could, would I do it all over again? Absolutely. If you ask me, I don't think I'm dark enough, okay? So I would choose still to be black because that is what I know and that is what I'm comfortable with. And I know I'm strong enough to make it through whatever they put me through. But all of these added layers, when you choose to be, choose to announce your sexual orientation, an announcement to me is not, do people make announcements when they're promiscuous? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a hoe. Oh my goodness. You know, that announcement does not get, that announcement does not go out. It's still a minimized reality. Okay. But for some reason, the announcement of the other protected groups is loud and proud, and that's fine. But when it's in my ear, you're blowing out my eardrum. Now, and it affects my children because I'm at home with them talking about, okay, listen, your birth certificate says boy, male even. All right. Listen, I know that on television, there's always some guy kissing a guy. There's a woman kissing a woman. You know, this is being pressed upon us. And because of this, we're almost expected to make a choice. Okay. As a young person, I made my choice. Well, actually, I didn't make my choice. God made my choice. And I'm grateful that I have 4 sons and all of them are heterosexual. We speak openly about any and everything. And I am so proud that I have been able to allow God to guide my steps in parenting. Okay. Now I don't give a crap about anybody else that wants to argue with me about that or say, well, you know what? That was their choice. Yeah, well, that may be the case, but I'm not about to say, okay, thing 1 and thing 2, you let me know what you want to be when you grow up, including your gender. And we'll just go in that direction. No. What I did with my children early on was I showed them, along with their father, because I was married to their father, we showed them how to live a certain type of life. And we didn't shield them from much of anything because I remember when my son asked me, I took him to the beauty counter. Shame on me. I was trying to get me some MAC lipstick, y'all, okay? And some guy he reached for the dang on color I was reaching for. And he put it on his lips and asked his friends, how does it look? And I was so stunned. I was staring with my mouth open like, no, you didn't just grab. Now, that was before it was all out in the open, okay? I'm like, dang, I was going to grab that. I don't really want the color now because I'm visualizing on a man with a beard now. And my son asked me, he said, Mommy, are boys supposed to wear lipstick? And he asked me that in front of this guy. And I said, no. And the guy got offended. Did I lie? No, I did not. Because I grew up where men are not supposed to wear lipstick. Lipstick was made for women. And that's what I'm not really ready to play the Jedi mind trick. So I'm like, no. And I'm very cavalier about it. I didn't say, oh, I'll tell you later. I'm going to tell you now.
And listen, and
we're talking now. I'm going to tell you now.
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry. We got some comments, but go ahead. I'm listening. We got some comments. I'm going to go ahead and put them up.
And I'm looking at the time too. And I'm going to say this.
What, somebody said it was getting late?
Again, this is not an attack on any culture of people.
Nope.
The type of person I am, look, I've hung out with, wealthy blacks and non-wealthy blacks. I've hung out with wealthy whites and non-wealthy whites. I've hung out with. If you're in Kansas City, everybody knows where Missy B's is at. I've been invited to Missy B's. I've
Wait,
been
what's
to the
Missy
after.
B's?
I've been to the after.
Don't brush over that. What is Missy
I'll let
B's?
JD put it in the chat. But I've been to the after parties of the St. Louis Black Repertory Theater. And I've been to their amazing after parties. So, my gay family, my gay friends, look, continue to entertain the way you guys entertain, the way you guys decorate, the way you guys cook. Hey, I'm down. Hey, I'm cool with that. I'm not too down with the way they party at the B's and everything at the Missy
What
B's.
is
That's
Missy
not my
B's?
Well, Missy B's is set up where you have a floor where you have drag queen shows, and then it's a gay club, it's a gay nightclub.
Okay.
But like downstairs they have a drag queen show, which are they're actually pretty good shows where they're doing karaoke and all type of interesting performances. Then you go upstairs and it's a dance club. I've just never been in a dance club where people can dance with their shirt off, and it's nonstop dancing. But
that sounds like a place I wouldn't mind going to. I'm an adult,
and I went and see when you're confident in your sexuality,
right?
You don't mind doing it.
Right.
I went because I was in some productions where half of the cast were gay. Which I don't have a problem with that. We're artists. We put on great performances together. But they were respectful enough to ask me, "Do you mind going to Missy B's?" And everything. And I was like, I knew where it was. I said, "No, I don't mind." They said, "You know what it is?" And I was like, "Yeah, I knew of Missy B's." So I've been twice.
Well, see, they were nice enough to ask you, but my boss back in the day when I was in my early 20s, when I thought I was real cute, I had on my little silver outfit and I went to his birthday party and I was like, why is there so many women here? Where the men at? And they were out, my song came on, I'm dancing, and some girls started dancing with me. I didn't think anything of it because I'm just cool like that. Mm-hmm. And, she dancing, and then some girl came dancing behind me and I had to push them back, by dancing, because I know that move too. You know how people try to dance and touch your booty? Yeah. So I had to dance and just kind of say, no, not today, not today. And then I realized that was a chick behind me and I was shocked. And one of the girls asked me to take her home to her home, not my home. Uh-huh. And because I have a heart, remember the Chinese heart I showed you? Uh-huh. I took her home. I dropped her off. I have nothing against anyone who chooses to love whoever they love. My issue is with recruiting and bullying children.
Yes.
That's my issue.
Yes, that's
recruiting and bullying children. That mess has to stop for real because it is an abomination. It's an abomination, number one. Number two, kids don't know. They pick instruments. My son, he wanted to play football. Then it was basketball. Then it was soccer. And he didn't want to do piano anymore. And he spent all this money on all this stuff. So how is it that parents are spending gender transformative surgery money on children that change their mind about the instruments or sports they want to play?
And let me ask this before I even forget.
Yeah.
If you're feeling emotional about this conversation, right? If you are abusive, right? And we all know who you are, especially if you're a woman. If you're an abusive woman,
we all know who you are.
If you are an abusive woman, it's okay. Put it in the chat or have somebody else put it in the chat for us. Do I have a right to defend myself? If you are an abusive woman, as a man, does a man have a right to defend himself? And if you are homosexual, does a heterosexual have a right to refuse you or not to think the way that you think or feel the way you feel?
Mm-hmm. Can you
Does
take
he
rejection?
have a right to?
Yeah.
If you're Jewish,
Hold on. Now we don't want to get canceled.
Ashkenazi Jew.
Oh, okay. Well, that's different.
Do I have a right to talk about the abuse of entertainers in the entertainment industry? The exploitation. Do I have a right to talk about the exploitation? Or can I not use the gender or the person? Do I have a right to use the word Ashkenazi Jew? Do I have a right to use it?
It's just a question, y'all.
Yes or no? Do I have a right to use the word, or is it, like the N word? Can we like not use that now? As can I not use that? Do I have to use something else? What should I use? What should I use?
You should use your noggin.
Or if you're one of the protected groups, does the people that that you use your power against have any rights? Do they have any rights?
Well,
at all?
do I have any rights?
Do I have any rights as a black man? Do I have any rights?
No, you ain't got no rights. I'm a woman. I'm different.
Do I have any?
Nope. Nope. And something, I failed to show this particular comment where someone said that men have been, let me go back and find it because I don't want to get it wrong. He mentioned that he had been, here we go. Don't forget the young men that have been assaulted by trusted women in their lives. Yeah. I mean, don't forget.
I'm not going to go in on that one. We'll save that for the next show.
Y'all. Oh boy.
We'll save that for the next show.
Boy. Yeah. Well, Labnificent. Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to thank LaSavin. I want to thank Martin G. Johnson, the crime chaser. Definitely want to thank the young man that called in. Ricardo Arce. I think I'm saying your name right. I hope I'm saying your name right. I want to thank you for your comments and keeping it interactive. We will be on every week. Today is Tuesday. So we will be on is it Tuesday? Are we going to be on every Tuesday or Monday? Tuesday. I guess Tuesday's better because we were trying every Monday.
Yeah, maybe every Tuesday if that works.
Oh, wait, you're doing a film, aren't you? You can't even.
Yeah, I think I'm filming. Yeah.
Dang.
You know what? Yeah, I'll be filming.
Okay. So those of you that don't know, Lorenzo T. Hughes is an actor, producer, and director and writer. And he is part of a project. Can you talk about it? It's a secret.
Yeah, well, I'm doing some work on Chicago Med, so
I love how you just act like it's no big deal.
Yeah, it's no big deal.
I be wanting to make cupcakes and stuff and put candles in them and celebrate when I get a roll, which I only got one ever. But anyway, congratulations to you, Lorenzo. And I know you're a hard worker when it comes to the theater arts and television and film. You're a hardworking man. And we celebrate you. Guys, you have been watching Relationshipping. We talk about relationships, family dynamics, culture, cancel culture. We're going to cut out this cancel culture, y'all. Stop canceling people. And upcoming, just in the future episodes, we will be talking about gender reassignment and the allotment of working with female and male sports when it comes to gender associations. And we also will be talking about how I can decide that I identify as a man and I can go to Morehouse right now. Yep. I can go to Morehouse. Okay. But we will also be talking about the difficulties in dating in your 50s. Okay. 40s, 50s, the difficulty of dating. I don't even think it's a difficulty in dating in those years. What were you going to say? You going to start the show?
I'm listening. Go ahead.
Is it difficult?
No,
is it difficult for you?
I'll save it for the show.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I just hear a lot of stories. They're not horror stories. Please stop saying that, people. Do not say that there are horror stories on dating apps. Those are not horror stories. They're not horror stories. Okay. You have a choice the moment you swipe right. You have a choice. So just do your homework and keep it moving. All of you parents out there, take care of those kids. Happy holidays. We
Yes.
are in the thick of it. Thanksgiving is right around the corner. Don't fight anybody because they used Jiffy in their cornbread dressing. Just eat it, grin and bear it, okay? And say thank you and be grateful. I'm LaDonna Raeh,
I'm Lorenzo T. Hughes, y'all.
and you've been watching Relationship, and we'll be back. We're gonna figure this thing out, Mr. Man on TV.
Yes. It's all about having those conversations, y'all.
Yes, yes. Oh, looks like Labnificent says she subscribed. I'm sorry, I don't. It's Labnificent. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, love you guys,
Love you.
and have the best evening ever. Bye bye.